Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has published the draft Companies Amendment Bill for public comment. The bill proposes that publicly listed companies and state-owned enterprises disclose the pay gaps between directors and workers. Minister Ibrahim Patel had this to say when announcing the bill. Take a listen.
The bill seeks to clarify the responsibilities between directors and senior management on the one hand and shareholders on the other hand, as well as addressing public concerns regarding high levels of inequality in society. Excessive remuneration, particularly at the highest level of a company, is a matter of great concern internationally, but also in South Africa. During the course of discussions on the bill with both BUSA and with organized labor, the matter of wage ratios and the status of remuneration reports were raised and a number of proposals were made. The discussions focused on what would be an appropriate package of measures that would provide for disclosure of information, coupled with greater rights for shareholders at annual general meetings in respect of remuneration reports, without placing an undue burden on smaller businesses. Based on the outcome of the discussions with representatives of business and labor, amendments were drafted for inclusion in the bill.
Well, joining us to talk more about the ramifications of this bill is Senior Executive for Corporate Reporting at the South African Institute for Chartered Accountants, Milton Segal. Milton, thank you very much for joining us. You heard what the Minister had to say there about excessive, remuneration in South Africa. Talk to us about what this bill seeks to achieve.
Good evening. Thank you for your time, and good evening to your listeners. It's a very interesting inclusion. What it seeks to achieve is really enhanced disclosure. It seeks to achieve enhanced transparency. It wants, in the full public view, to understand what executive management, what the principal officers, what the CEOs earn, and the entire quantum of their package, not only their salary, but their bonuses, their share options, potential fringe benefits, etc. They want to know that. And new to be included in the bill, as we heard in the clip, is they also want to know the differential between that, the highest paid employee, as well as that of the lowest paid employee. So effectively, they're looking to disclose the difference between what the highest earning employee earns and what the lowest employee earning earns. In a simplified shell, that's what it's looking to achieve.
Milton, you've just penned your own opinion as a SAICA executive about, the unintended consequences of this particular bill. These are publicly listed companies, which means that they are on the JSE, and these are, entities, government entities. You are concerned about this particular bill, having some unintended consequences. Talk to us about that.
So I think just to take a step back, I think the principle is sound. I think it talks to the King IV Code of Governance and what's been included in terms of disclosing the remuneration policy and disclosing and having that policy at a shareholders meeting or an AGM for approval. I think that is sound. I think the concern is, or the potential concern is when this information is now in the public domain, what is the value of that information and what will the information be used for? And I think it's going to be fairly well understood that there will be a pay gap. There will be a significant and a substantial pay gap between that, let's say, of the CEO and the lowest earning employee. We understand that. It will be significant in terms of rands. It will be significant in terms of percentages. The question is, what will the information be used for and what are the potential ramifications from that? Could it be seen as something positive? Could it be seen as an incentive for the lower earning employees to seek to look to or aspire to climb the corporate ladder, to grow in the company or the entity, to one day sit in that top seat of the CEO or on the board of directors and be part of that executive remuneration? Or will it disincentivize the employees? Will it aid to the disparity? Will it look to seek some type of additional remuneration for these employees that potentially may exceed the value? So I think the consequence, or the unintended consequence, is that does the information going to produce extra value that will give the users of the financial statements, the stakeholders, the employees, the creditors, the government, will that give them additional information that can be used for decision-making purposes?
Milton, what international trends are happening that you are seeing? I saw that the UK recently came up with new proposals when it comes to gender representation, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to that part of remuneration.
So certainly, I think even on a global basis, this is not unique to South Africa. There's an eye over executive remuneration. There's questions around the fairness or the equity of executive remuneration in comparison to that of other employees. What we are seeing coming out of the UK, as an example, is looking at not only comparison between highest and lowest, but looking across gender and comparing the amounts of pay or the rates of pay per gender. So comparing that of female executives to male executives, comparing the average female employee to the average male employee. And I think that is an important aspect to look at. We understand that there is gender inequality. It's not unique to South Africa. It is a global trend. It is an area that we're looking to grow and to make sure that is addressed. And I think that's something that could be useful for consideration and inclusion in a bill like this. But I think the important part, as the Minister said in your clip, this is not unique to South Africa.
Milton, you must agree that when it comes to South Africa, there is a huge pay gap between the CEOs, and when you look at the millions that they are raking in when it comes to the entire package, and the 21 Rand 69 cents per hour when it comes to the national minimum wage. There is unfairness there. You must agree to that being a huge disparity, and something must be done about it.
So certainly, I mean, I think to address the gap between that, between the traditional, say, blue-collar workers versus the executives, something does have to be done in that regard. But I think it gets down to value. And I think it gets down to a comparison not of the actual gross remuneration or the gross earning, but the value achieved by that. And if we're to further look into the value, whether it's a CEO earning 3 million or 4 million, 5 million, is that CEO or that director producing value? Is that director worth what is being paid, what she's being paid? Is that director or CEO producing economic benefits to other stakeholders, to the business? Is it driving profitability? Is it driving technological advancement? Is it driving the future sustainability of that business that will ensure that that business will continue to trade in the future, will hopefully grow, that it will be able to retain not only its current employees, but grow the employee base, to promote its employees, to increase the payment in those employees? That, I think, is a measure as well. So I think to look at these in absolute figures and absolute terms, talk to some of the possible unintended consequences, because we need to equate it in terms of absolute value, but also in the value that's being created to the economy by these executives. And I think one of the things that is clear is that there has been an exit of talent within South Africa in the last few years. And we need talent, and we need top-level executives with sufficient skills, with knowledge, and with experience to be able to lead, to be able to grow, and to be able to bring this expertise to produce benefit for the economy, for the employees. So it's interesting, once it's all out in the public domain, it's important that I think the context is understood, that the raw or the absolute figure is not just looked at in isolation without understanding the value attributed to the various levels of employees.
Milton Segal, the Senior Executive at the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, thank you very much for your time there. This is a debate that is still going to go on, as sensitive and emotive as it is when it comes to gender gap remuneration in South Africa.